What would you do if a hurricane tore through your rental home? And your landlord not only refused to fix the damage but tried to pin the entire bill on you? In today's story, my partner and I faced that exact nightmare. But how we handled it is a masterclass in turning the tables on a couple of slumlords who thought they could get away with anything. My story starts about a decade ago when I was living in Florida. I'd just met my partner, Mark, and we decided to move in together to get me out of a pretty bad spot with my old roommates. We found what we thought was a perfect little two-bedroom house owned by an elderly couple, the Gables, who lived just a few blocks away. Everything seemed okay at first, but then we found cockroaches. I'm a very clean person and I had never dealt with roaches before, so it was a shock. When we told the Gables, they insisted they weren't roaches, but palmetto bugs. As many Southerners know, while palmetto bugs are technically a type of cockroach, they're native and don't usually infest a home like the smaller, filth-associated German cockroaches do. They're bigger and tend to just wander inside stupidly when the weather changes. That said, if you're seeing a bunch of them, it's a problem that needs treatment. The Gables flat out refused to call an exterminator. That was bad sign number one. Then, this being Florida, a hurricane blew in. I think it was a Category 1 or 2. Nothing too catastrophic. But Mark and I were Northerners and had no real idea how to properly prepare. All the Gables told us was to lower the hurricane shutters. So that's all we did. The storm caused substantial damage to the roof, and a lot of water got inside. Soon enough, we had mold growing on our walls, especially in the laundry room. We reported it, and they just told us to wash it down with bleach water. We did. But of course, it came right back, turning into a constant cleaning battle. When we complained again, they just shrugged and told us, "That's what life in Florida is like." It's incredible how some landlords dismiss mold. I read a comment from someone online whose landlord found mold and claimed, "There's no such thing as white mold," and then tried to justify it by saying mold is in the Bible. Our landlords weren't quoting scripture, but their attitude was just as dismissive. Mr. Gable came by to look at the roof, from the yard. He looked up at the damage, then looked at us and said, "You two are strapping young men. You can go up there and fix it. Just let us know when you're done." We were speechless. At that moment, Mr. Gable made a monumentally foolish decision. One born from pure cheapness. He had no idea that by trying to save a few $100s on a roofer, he was setting himself up for tens of thousands in future losses. Another hurricane, again a Cat 1 or 2, rolled through. This time, because the roof was never repaired or even tarped from the first storm, the damage was much worse. Windows were broken during the storm, and water just poured in. Our carpets and furniture were completely soaked. And then came the black mold. And this time it wasn't just on the walls. It was creeping across our carpets and even our furniture. The house was unlivable. I spent my days outside with our dog just to breathe fresh air. And we were forced to sleep in Mark's office. We called the Gables again, and their response was infuriating. They told us to just clean it up with bleach and that all the new damage was our fault because we hadn't fixed the roof ourselves like they'd told us to. That was the last straw. We called the city and requested an inspector. The moment he walked in, he stopped dead in his tracks and just balked at the scene. There was black mold everywhere, on the walls, all over the carpets. The roach problem had exploded. He went outside, looked at the roof, and immediately said it was clear the roof needed repairs even before the recent storm, and noted that it still hadn't even been tarped. And then, the best part. As I was standing at the open door talking with the inspector, Mr. Gable himself came walking up the path. He didn't see the city official at first and immediately launched into a tirade about how we'd better have fixed that roof, and how he was going to charge us for all the repairs, the carpet replacement, the mold removal, all of it. His voice was dripping with condescending certainty. Just then, the city inspector stepped out from around the corner, his face grim. "Are you the owner of this property?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Mr. Gable puffed up his chest and said yes. He was. The inspector didn't miss a beat. "I'm condemning this house. It is not habitable," he stated plainly. "And it is not the tenant's responsibility to make or pay for any of these repairs." He also added that he'd be recommending we be released from our lease immediately. The color drained from Mr. Gable's face. He started to stammer, but no words came out. I have never seen an old man wobble away so fast in my life. The sense of vindication was glorious. Later that night, his wife called, and she was on fire. She screamed down the phone about how she was suing us for damages and that we weren't getting our security deposit back. She even admitted that she had gone over and torn down the official condemned sign the inspector had placed on our door because it was embarrassing. This revealed the Gables' greatest fatal flaw, their blinding arrogance. They genuinely believed they were untouchable, that they could bully and lie their way out of any responsibility. A belief that was about to spectacularly implode. But then she made a huge mistake. She followed up her tirade with a series of strongly worded letters. In them, she accused us of taking advantage of the elderly, reiterated that all the damages were our fault for not doing repairs, and stated that she would not release us from the lease and was planning multiple lawsuits. She even admitted in writing to removing the condemned sign. We immediately contacted the inspector who had visited our house. We turned over all the letters. He let out a long, tired sigh, followed by a laugh. He told us he saw this kind of thing all the time after hurricanes and knew exactly how to handle it. He assured us that what they were doing was highly illegal, and if they actually sued, he would personally testify in our favor. He then said he was going to pay the Gables a little visit himself, and make sure those letters got into the right hands at the city. About a week passed in silence. Then, we got a call from Mrs. Gable. The change in her tone was stunning. It was sickly sweet and dripping with fake pleasantry. She told us what wonderful tenants we were and that she was, of course, refunding our full security deposit. She was also graciously letting us out of our lease and wouldn't be pursuing any charges or the rent for the last few months, which we had refused to pay since the house was uninhabitable. She even offered to refer us to some of her friends who also owned property. We just said, "No, thanks," and hung up, barely containing our laughter. We kept an eye on the house out of curiosity. We learned it had to be completely gutted and remodeled. One evening, we even parked up the road with some takeout and just watched a crew hauling out massive chunks of moldy sheetrock and ruined carpet. All of it could have been avoided if they had just spent the money on a roofer and a mold remediation company in the first place. They could have saved themselves tens of thousands of dollars and the humiliation of having their property condemned. This whole ordeal taught us a crucial lesson: know your rights as a tenant. Negligent landlords often count on your ignorance to avoid their legal and financial responsibilities. Don't let them. Standing your ground and using the system that's there to protect you can make all the difference. What's the most outrageous thing a landlord has ever asked or expected you to do? And how did you handle it?